back online. And then have we texted out the link to peeps? Sweet, we're back. That was easy. Thank you, everybody. Cool. Well, in 1 minute or moment, we're going to have the students, participants, and the instructors, leaders come on up. And essentially, just real quick in terms of framing, we call this, one of the things we call this is out in the field, we talk to each participant about this exercise called transference. And here's what we mean by that. That they have been in the 40-day, they've been in the wilderness for the last 40 days in a very intentional community, going through things that are really, really amazing, really, really hard, lots of highs, lots of joys, lots of lows, and lots of hardship. And they've been doing that together. And in the midst of that, God has been with them the entire time. And he's been present with them. He's been speaking in and through them. He has been speaking to them in many, many, many ways, through his word, by creation, through the Holy Spirit. I mean, it's just been, in some ways, almost like an overload. And they're now coming back, and this is the first time they're communicating outside of that intentional community. So this is the first time, really, they've been around family, friends, loved ones, and we have asked them to come and share some of the things that God has done in their hearts over the last 40 days. And if you can imagine, that's quite an exercise. First of all, for some of these people, this room's full of strangers they've never met. And for some of these people, they're sharing, like I said, outside of this community for the first time. And that takes courage. So for you participants, I just want to encourage you all, just as you've been courageous over the last 40 days, and you've really leaned into that ability to be brave and courageous in spite of the uncertainty and the unknowns, that tonight we're just inviting you all to be brave in a different kind of way, more mentally and emotionally and spiritually rather than physically, but actually maybe physically as well, standing up here in front of people. But we know that God has done some amazing things. So what we're asking them to do is just begin to share some of the highlights that God did in and through their lives, that they want to bring from the backcountry, bring from the wilderness, to transfer or bring with them into the front country. We call these upgrades, we call these transferences, we call these peg points, Ebenezer's. There's a lot of names we give to it, but we're just wanting them to begin to capture for the first time outside of their community some of what God did in and through them over these last 40 days. So I'm going to have Logan and Emily, and then the team, actually. We'll just have the whole team come on up here right now. I'll have Logan and Em share any kind of context that you would like to share. Awesome. And then, we'll just be hearing from each participant. And then after that, we'll transition to some prayer. So I'll turn it over to you guys, you all.
Hi, everybody. I'm Logan. For those that I have not had the pleasure of meeting, myself and Emily Cable were the lead instructors for this team and had the pleasure and the honor, really, to lead this group for the entire course. And so we received them in the building. We've been with them every day and night, except for their student-led, which is brings me to my next point. If you missed the beginning of the slideshow, especially anybody watching, there was a really intentional song placement. If you've seen Frozen 2, there's a funny little clip about being lost in the woods.
Oh, nice.
Emily and I, on their student-led, we're just kind of out hiking. We're trusting that we've just, empowered them well, taught them well. We go to our camp. Actually, on the way to camp, they tell us, hey, we're going to do a different route than we thought. I'm like, okay, what's that? Because we just crossed paths one day. Like, we actually want to go around and do this other route. We were like, okay, sure. Do what you want to do. And by the end of it, we're kind of at this junction where we kept waiting for them to cross. And we're there, and we're like having lunch, just, peaceful 45-minute lunch, just hanging out. We're like, hey, let's just take a nap. Took a 20-minute nap. Still hadn't seen them. We're like, man, it's getting late. Still nothing. Well, then we realized, hey, they didn't come this way. We don't see any tracks, nothing. So we're like, well, let's just go to camp and kind of sort it out. Maybe they're there. They passed us a different way. We don't know. Maybe my tracking skills aren't as good as I thought they were, and I just don't see trail. So we go. Well, then we realize they're still not at camp. I'm like, oh, something's up. So we decide we're gonna stay. I'm gonna be at base camp with the sat phone, just in case something goes in. And she was gonna go scope out their actual campsite. And so I'm like getting my pack ready to like go search for the team, because we were like, hey, they're lost in the woods, like legit. Well, then she comes back, tells me all is well, it's all good. So we just thought it'd be a funny little jab about them being lost in the woods and adding almost 3 miles to their day, just because they wanted to take a shortcut. We're going to let the team share, but like Andrew kind of framed, they're going to talk about funny stories, maybe sad stories, things that God did in their lives, things that they're still seeking, maybe seeds he's planted, or even identity shifts and changes in their life. And so, yeah, we're just going to honor them and celebrate them. And then Emily and I will kind of follow with our perspective, because that's not as important. So something with our team that we realized when we would do, we like circles at SROM, like everything's a circle, like, hey guys, we're going to circle up always. And we say, okay, we're going to just popcorn. Whoever wants to go, go. And then we'd say that, and the group would just sit there. And so because of that, we realized, hey, someone's going to have to go, and then we're always just going to go clockwise. They hated counterclockwise. They hated it. And so, you know, I'll stick to that, and I'll say that Lydia, because she's on the front end there, and then we'll just go down the clock. Yeah, so if you're ready and willing.
Hi, I'm Lydia. So my story is actually going to be a little bit different from everybody else's. I didn't finish the 40. I failed snow school. I wasn't physically strong enough to complete snow school. And so I'm going to talk a little about the 14 days before, and then the 27 days I did here in Laramie. So I think, sorry, I haven't really prepared very well. I did this with my brother, Kareth. I came out of a really hard semester. A lot of personal stuff happened. And my family suggested the 40 because Kareth had already done it and saw how great it was for him. What an awesome opportunity it would be for me to have that same experience. So I don't know why I agreed, because like for the first 3 months of them talking about it, it was like, no way. That's a little too much, man. I don't think I can use the bathroom in front of and let everybody know. I don't think I can, get all dirty, and it really just freaked me out. And then something flipped, and I kind of started thinking differently about it as an opportunity to improve mental health, physical health, spiritual health. I was teetering on the edge, if not already over the edge, of agnosticism. And needless to say, this 14 days in the wilderness brings you back over the edge from that, because you don't have much else to rely on except God. I think the healthiest part of the group, or the trip, was the group. Having a really solid community built on vulnerability and having to really be there for each other in our weakest moments, which for me were quite a few. The trip was really difficult on me physically. So first 14 days, really learned a lot about God's forgiveness and opening up and being vulnerable about chapters in my life that I didn't really want to talk about. And then snow school happened, and that was pretty devastating, I'll be honest. I really wanted to go into this trip committing wholeheartedly. I'm not a quitter. I don't quit things normally, and so to have to leave, not by my own choice, was a real blow. But I got back here, and Andrew offered me the opportunity to stay as summer staff, and I just, I really, I really wanted to complete something. And I feel like I was sharing with the group today. I feel like I did that. So yeah, I came into the trip not in a very healthy place, and came out. Haven't really had a ton of mental health issues or episodes since getting off course, and that's about a month of healthy behavior and mindset. But I am really thankful for my time on course. I think it set me up to take more initiative, be more driven, and feel closer to God. Sorry, they asked me to share my I am statement. My I am statement was, I was weak, but now I am strong.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jack Davis from Jackson, Mississippi. I came here to SROM under different circumstances than the rest of the team. They all chose to come here, and I had some grades come back bad, and my parents decided to send me here. It was intended to be, I guess, a punishment and to be a really hard time. But I ended up really loving it. There definitely were still hard times. The day we were lost in the woods, they mentioned I was in charge of navigation, so lots of improvement in a lot of areas, but not so much in studying maps. But it's really been a great experience for me. The first 2 days in the warehouse before we left for the actual wilderness, I was kind of grumpy, not wanting to be there, not having the best attitude. But I just started to get to know the rest of the team, and they were really great people. Coming in, I was worried they'd be weird or I wouldn't be able to connect with them. But I was very wrong about that, and they've been a great team. And I just prayed one night. I was just like, God, this might not be fun, but help me have the best attitude I can. Wow. And that's something I tried to do most of the time. It was challenging. I came in, I found out about it pretty last minute and didn't have time to do all the physical training for it. So that was tough getting here and immediately hiking a bunch with a heavy pack, which I'd never done. I'd never camped for more than a night before. So it was kind of out of my element. But I had an incredible team around me. And I learned a lot about myself. I learned that when I depend on God and really push myself, I can do so much more than I think I can. And I also learned that with God's help, I can make the best of any situation, because this could have been the worst 40 days of my life, but I think it may have been the best. Wow. My I am statement, kind of just I am statements like saying your identity in God. I was trapped in anxiety and shame by the expectations of my parents and peers, but now I am confident in my identity in God, in who he made me, and I know that he delights in me for who I am.
Hello. Hello, everyone. I came here because two of my sisters have done strong courses, and they really enjoyed them, and I saw the pictures and stuff like that, and so I don't know, I guess for like years I've kind of wanted to do one, and so kind of by surprise, like a month and a half before the course started, my dad was like, "Oh, you're going on 40." I was like, "Oh, okay." So it was a lot harder than I thought it would be. I guess physically. And one thing that I guess I hadn't thought about was like how how impactful, like, I guess the spiritual atmosphere would be, since most people like continually were thinking in the spiritual realm. I guess it forced me to like think of things spiritually, and I was kind of like always in that mode for 40 days, and I definitely like grew a lot in my faith because of that, and like I guess the attitudes that everyone had, and so I have been struggling, I guess, in recent years with like seeing why I have to go through things in my life that I don't understand, like why and what purpose God has in it, and how He would be faithful through it, and how like I can trust Him. And so it's kind of been difficult to do that. But I've been praying for a while for wisdom and faith, specifically for different reasons. And at one point, like towards the end of the course, I realized that I had specifically grown in those areas over the length of the course. Wow. And I hadn't expected that. And I guess seeing that He had answered those prayers, like, just showed me His faithfulness and let me see that He is active in my life. Wow. And is paying attention to my prayers. Wow. Yeah. That's all I have.
So I'm Andy. I was the old guy of the group, except for the 2 weeks or however long Jacob was with us. So I think one of my favorite memories was we were doing rappel late at night, and for some reason I started spinning, and I had my headlamp on, and I just hear from below, "Andy, you look like a lighthouse." That's awesome. And everyone started singing "My Lighthouse" by Ring Collective. It was really funny. So it was a really good memory. Everyone was laughing really good. But I came on this course really looking for some clarity and just some peace. My wife and I had been going through a divorce process, and we separated back in November, and I moved in with my brother-in-law and sister-in-law in early January this year, and started doing a new job at a coffee shop, and just found it really hard to start like sorting out the decisions I had to make. The day-to-day stuff was just hard, and so I just felt the need to get some space. And a good buddy of mine had done this trip 15 years ago when it was a lot easier on the body and everything. And I had this in my mind, and I was just like, I need to do that. I'd wanted to do it for so long, and finally had this opportunity to be able to do it. And so out on the trip and everything, I feel like God just reminded me of his goodness, his beauty, and just that he's there with me. And it was really a good time. It was hard. And I told the team, like, there's just something about doing really hard things that God kind of pulls out things in you that you don't know you have. And there were many times when Logan had to push me and be like, you got it, man. You got one more step, and just keep taking one more step. And it was seemingly impossible on some of those nearly straight uphill climbs. But God just really met me in all of that. And I feel like I do have so much more clarity today, and confidence in where I'm going from here. I did find out today that on the 16th of this month, our divorce is finalized. So it was kind of interesting coming back and learning that. But it doesn't negate at all what God has done in the whole process. And so I'm just really grateful for this trip, for the team, our instructors, and everything that they did for us. My I am statement, I was enslaved to my passive nature, but now walk in the freedom of Christ's purpose on my life. And so, that's my story. Thank you.
Yeah. So I normally don't like talking in front of people, but if it means I can keep this mask off, I might not actually mind it that much. Yeah, so it was about, I think, almost exactly a year ago when my friend Tyrell had actually invited me to go on this course. And I hadn't really thought about doing like much wilderness stuff before this. But I kind of looked into the course and I was like, that'd be really nice to get away from like the hectic schedule I had. Because I'm a firefighter and EMT, have 2 jobs, and a fairly big family, so it's kind of hard to get any free time or anything like that, any time to process. I felt like I was really falling behind in my faith, not being able to find time for God or anything like that. So, yeah, I came out here, flew into Denver, decided to go hiking for like a day, just did a mile hike, and I think I almost died from the elevation. I was like, oh, this might not be a good idea. I lived. So, yeah, then from from there, from Denver, we flew to Laramie. Came here. My uncle had told me that get ready to spend your summer with a bunch of hippies. So I was pleasantly surprised to find out that that was not the case. Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, began the course. Started rock climbing, which was something I'd never done before. It wasn't necessarily scary, but it was just like kind of have a little bit of anxiety from it, something new. But yeah, just through all that, like the skills started to kind of not be my focus anymore. It really started to be the group. Just like more and more, and then when we moved on to mountaineering school, and then when Lydia wasn't able to pass it, like that hit me hard. Just another teammate that I wasn't able to help through that. Yeah, and after that, we had gone to the winds, and I had a little bit of solo time, and I was kind of writing out my I am statement, and I began to realize how much I put an emphasis on people and how much that's been like a center part of my life. So, like for my I am statement, I wrote out, I am not my own. I am here for God and the people God created, whether physically, emotionally, or spiritually. And through the rest of my course, I was kind of able to try and live that out more. Yeah, it was quite difficult through the mountaineering section of winds, trying to focus on other people when you're spending 11 hours a day climbing up rocks with an almost 100-pound pack. But yeah, just trying to focus on others, it was difficult, but I began to realize like more and more through that, like my calling in life and where I should go from here. It became very, very clear, and yeah, on my way back, once we got back here, I got a letter from my mom. It was supposed to come to me sometime in the middle, but sadly got here a little late for them to be able to pack my letter out. Kind of telling me that my grandfather was circling the drain, or great-grandfather was circling the drain, and is probably going to die within the next couple of weeks, and just a lot of other things on top of that. And I feel like if I wasn't at this course, I probably would not be handling that as well as I've been able to now, because I've learned to trust a lot more in God. I've had a somewhat rough childhood, and my dad was he killed my uncle when I was about 4 years old, and yeah, that's kind of been heavy on me for most of my life, and I kind of, yeah, at some points it would make me kind of doubt God, and yeah. But through the course, actually one thing that stood out to me was the amount of moose and elk tracks on the ground, and how they're prevalent, but you never actually see a moose or an elk. It's kind of how God is always present. You just never got to see him in actual form. Yeah. I just couldn't even in a tent one night. I was like, wait a minute. Yeah. But yeah. Yeah. This course has probably been the best thing I've ever done with my time. Best 40 days of my life. So it was hard for a lot of it, but in the end, I'm in a completely different place than I was before. So yeah, that's it. What's that?
That moment of being baptized?
Sure. So, yeah. So during my course, I was baptized by Logan. It's probably the best thing anyone's ever done for me, but I don't even know how to explain the moments afterwards. It was almost like the largest burden that I've ever had being lifted off of me. The joy I felt after that and the relief was, I don't know how to put it into words, but yeah. So, yeah.
Go, go.
So I'm Kareth. Before I begin, I'd like to address the jab the instructors took with the song. And I'd like to remind you of our first day in Laramie, or just outside, where y'all overshot our campsite. And we'll leave it at that. Check yourself before you wreck yourself. So, this is my third time standing up here. I've done a 20, a 40, and then this. So that's cumulative over 100 days with SRAM. So I think it's safe to say I came in with this with very different expectations, especially this one. I was very excited for it because I was presented with the opportunity as like going out on the course with my sister. And we were very careful to make sure I wasn't going out to be a crutch or to be a primary support system. And I think we did a good job of that. However, we had a wonderful time in the first two rations. It was I watched her grow in many ways. I watched her climb. I watched her learn how to belay. I watched her learn so many things. Stanley School, which is how to use the restroom, how to set up tents, all the different dynamics that have almost become normal to me. And that was great. I actually got to belay her. You saw that in the photos at one point. And when she made it to the top, it was moments like that. And when she did multi-pitch, it was moments like that where I think I got a taste of what my parents mean when they say they're proud of me. And that was truly something special, and I will cherish that for a while. Then we went to snow school, which is at the end of ration 2. And that is a 2-day process. And the first day, the instructors intentionally didn't reveal that if you don't pass snow school, you can't go on. Mostly not to put the pressure on, but also so that people can kind of relax in that in a bit and just understand that it's hard and you got to go through it. And so I already knew that was a problem, and so I saw Lydia struggling with that. And I wasn't too concerned at first, but going into the second day, I was getting worried. She hadn't done a lot of the sets needed, the repetitions of self-arresting and things, and so I finished mine. I passed snow school or whatever, and so I climbed back up the slope and stayed with her and helped and coached her and just gave her encouragement, simply being with her as she continued. And that was extremely difficult. Every time she fell down, she was attached to a rope for safety purposes, everybody was. Every time she fell down, I felt my whole body seize up in anticipation, begging and praying that she would actually, she would arrest and it would be acceptable, and the instructor would say, that was good. And then you check that one off your list and go on to the next one. And it took a really long time for her to get anywhere with that. She passed the first set and all that, and then we had to stop and move on to another part of school. And then we went back to it. It was her and a few others, and I stayed with her at the top of the ropes. Everybody else had gone down to camp. And I was sitting there, and she started the next exercise, which was very scary. It was head first on her back, sliding down. And she started down. My body seized up. I was tense, waiting, staring, watching, and she didn't arrest. She didn't stop. She didn't slow down. She went all the way down. She hit the bottom of the J line, and she whipped around. She was physically fine, but Emily went down to check on her, and I was sitting up there with Jacob, and I asked him, how feasible is it that she can actually pass? Because at that point, I kind of knew what was going to happen. And the conclusion was made that she wasn't going to do it. She wasn't going to pass. And from that moment started roughly a 2-day period of me, one of the things I was doing was going through my head my past 40 experience and everything I had done and all the beautiful things I had seen. And I was now looking at that from the perspective of, she won't get to see that. I won't get to see that with her. And that was possibly one of the hardest days of my life. It was devastating, and I didn't know what to do with that. The next day, we drove out to the Winds. She could camp there because of logistics. And then the next day, we were making breakfast, and I felt it was kind of like a final jab that she was put in my food group. And so the one time she's in my food group, it was for one day, and then she's gone. And so all throughout making pancakes that didn't taste that good, I was holding back tears. And we packed up, and I had asked the other night if I could use her camp chair, because I was of the opinion it was better than mine. And she walked over to me that day and said, "Here, you want it?" And I said, "No, I don't. I didn't want it. I didn't want to accept it. I didn't want anything of hers." And I broke down right there, right by my pack. And I cried a lot. I screamed, and I hyperventilated so bad my upper body seized up. And I couldn't feel my hands. I couldn't move my hands. My back hurt when I tried to move it, and so I had to get up and take a walk with Logan to just calm down. And at that point, I decided I couldn't do it. I couldn't go on. When we drove to the trailhead, I gave my decision to the group. I said that I'd given these mountains so much of my life, all of my high school life, really, ever since I was a freshman. And I had given them my sister, and now I don't want to give them any more. And so I drove back, and in a way, that means I quit. And I got back to the warehouse, and I debriefed with Andrew Arnold, and he offered me the opportunity, which I had no anticipation of accepting, to come back with Jacob, who was going to adjunct the mountaineering section, come back on ration 4, and finish rations 4 and 5 to the end of the course. And I took that opportunity, and he asked me, "What is your why?" Because now it's different. Clearly, Lydia being on the course with me was a big part of that. And so I had to adjust my expectations. I had to adjust what I wanted to learn. And he didn't ask an answer from me, and I almost wish he did, because I didn't come up with one. I didn't have a solid one. I thought, I wrote down several other things at the beginning, things I could work on, preparation for college, because I'm a rising freshman now. And that worked for a little bit. I went back. It was hard. It was grueling. I didn't think about Lydia too much. And then we were doing a peak attempt, Twin Peaks. I was in the first rope team, and on the approach, I looked up and I calculated that she could have done it. That day, she could have climbed. There were many days before that she couldn't have done the approach and all that. It wouldn't have been possible for her physically, but that day she could have done it. She could have climbed that mountain. And I had to call halt in the line, because it's really hard to cry at such a high altitude when you're doing physical work. And so I had to, in those few seconds, because I didn't want to hold up the whole team, I had to come to the conclusion that I was going to do it for her. And I didn't like that concept. I didn't want to finish the course for her. I'll go on for you. It sounds cliche, and it seemed hollow to me. But specifically for that mountain, I climbed that mountain for her. And that was kind of a perpetual theme, seeing all the beauty out there and her not being with me. And I started wondering, why am I out here? Why did I come? What is my why? Because I'd already done it, and without Lydia, it's feasibly no different than my last 40. It is, but that's how I felt. And so I could sure learn stuff out here, but that wasn't a big part of it. The big part of it was Lydia out there. I could be a leader. I was experienced. I could lead the group. I could lead my sister. I could be there for her. We could bond, and that was all taken away from me. And so what was my why? And I have not come to a definitive conclusion as to what that is. I don't know. I was just tired of being out there. I was tired of having emotions, because those 2 days after snow school decision was made, I was just emotionally drained, and that physically drained me, and I was absolutely exhausted. I was tired of that. I was tired of going on alone. It felt like I was alone. I've had a long and hard physical and academic high school career, and so I was tired there. And so that's my I am statement. And there is no I was, now I am. It's simply I am. I am tired. And there has not been resolution there. I expect there will. I don't doubt God's plan in all of this. But for the moment, I don't have a why, and I don't have an I was. And I wanted this course to be fun and exciting and showing someone I love the territory that I am familiar with. This is my turf. I know what this is. And I didn't. And it felt like a shred of beauty had been taken from my life. And so I mourned that. But I also had to grow. I had to focus on myself, because I wasn't out there solely for her. And there was development. I learned how to lead. I learned how to just sympathize with others and understand group dynamics and learn all of that. And so I can't say I haven't grown. I can't say there aren't any upgrades. I haven't specified what they are. I don't know. But I have most certainly grown. This is not a woe is me, what a terrible time. But yeah, that was a big part of it, and I don't know where to go with that now. So that's my I am statement. I am tired.
Hi. I'm Ben. Oh, sorry. I came out here on the course to try to be obedient to what I believe that God was calling me to do. I had heard about the course through my school, my college, and I felt that God was calling me to come out on the course, which is something I did not want to do. I'm very much a city person and not very physically fit, or, well, not that, but not a very outdoorsy person. And so definitely I think I came out of here and trying to be obedient to what God had called me to do and to find out what he had for me out here. And I came out wanting to know what God's plan was for the rest of my life, my next steps, and just what I was passionate about, what I wanted to do in the future, and I wanted all these answers. And what I got, a word that I've been throwing around in debriefing and stuff with the group is, especially on my 48-hour solo we did, was spiritual frustration in that regards, because I didn't hear from God in that, like, you should do this here, this is what you like to do, and go do this. It was very much an invitation to trust, and only that. And I didn't get any answers I was looking for, and it was kind of frustrating, because I felt like I'd have to stand up here and say, well, God did nothing, but I don't think that's true. That's kind of how I viewed it at first. But I think that something that he's been working in me is just to trust that I don't have to know everything, and I don't have to know exactly what my next steps are, to trust that he has a plan and that it's good. I think it was even a bit prideful of me to almost say, like, I'm going to get all these answers, and it was under the guise of that they were from God, and so it sounds spiritual and everything, but it was really, I wanted to know exactly what I was supposed to do so that I could do it, and then I would be the one doing that. And God has very much humbled me in that regard, and I don't have to know exactly what the next steps are. But to trust that the things in my life that don't make sense and the things that I don't know, that he has a plan, that it exists, and that one day I'll know it, but maybe not now. And another thing that I've been kind of thinking about out here is grace and having grace for myself. I'm very hard on myself a lot of the times, and I beat myself up about failures and mistakes, and forgiving myself and knowing that God's not mad at me all the time is somehow feels like cheating to me a lot of times. And so I'm still working on that, but something that I know that God wants for me is to have forgiveness and grace for myself and to see him in that way. And just that ties in with trusting, and just trusting that he loves me and that he's not mad at me. And so that's something that I've also been where is it? Working on out here. And yeah, just being okay with giving up certain things, what I want to do in my life and in my future. And just giving it to him, and just really surrendering that, and surrendering my will and what I want to do. And I had a lot of other stuff. Where was it? Next page. There it is. And just kind of, I mean, it wasn't totally dry. With the help of, just talking to people and stuff, and I've kind of starting to learn what I'm passionate about a little bit, and that I do enjoy teaching. I'm still trying to see how that plays out and work into that, and that I really have a passion for learning about other cultures and things like that, but nothing concrete like I wanted. And so it's still very much open, and I have to be okay with that. And in that, having grace for myself, my I am statement, which I am still walking out, and not, it's I am, but it's not I was yet, is I was walking in fear of failure and living in judgment under the law, but now I am learning to walk in acceptance of God's free gift of grace he has given me, knowing that he loves his boy and that he sings over me. So.
Hi, my name is Hannah, and my greatest desire for this course was to love Jesus more and to grow in Christ-likeness. And God has really answered that prayer. So the first page of my journal of the 40s, I pray that God, please show me my depravity and show me your glorious grace and give me a deeper understanding of the cross. And while the course was much different than what I had expected, these prayers he has fully answered. And I want to share with you the story of Jacob. It has been the theme of my journey over the 40 days. Jacob, born after Esau, his whole life he has been striving to become somebody that he is not, to be the firstborn. And he's very, makes a lot of efforts to do that. Cooking stew for his brother, deceiving him and his father. Also, when he was working for Laban, he was doing all kinds of tricks with the flock, so he would get a lot of flock, and in the end deceiving him as well and fleeing to get back to his home. And all the time I see Jacob, I feel he's acting out of his desire to become somebody that he is not, and he is working with a lot of effort to do that, and he's relying on his own strength, on his own I guess wisdom, or in a way he is smart, but he is relying on that to become something that he wants to be. And so I was born in Germany. I'm actually German. My parents are Korean immigrants and went there like 30 years ago, and that's where I grew up. And just being a child of immigrants, I've always felt like, hey, I need to work hard because I can't always get the help from my parents. So I will just rely on myself, and that is what I can trust in, my own abilities, my strength. And if I just work hard enough, and if I want something, I can achieve it by my strength, by my effort, and by me trying hard. And it worked well for most of my life. But in recent years, God has been changing that, and he has done a big deal with that during this trip, because he has shown me that this working hard and my own achievements, my own efforts has become one of my greatest idols. And instead of relying on God, I've been relying on myself and my own strength. So before coming to Laramie, I've actually just started working out, going for runs a lot, and just like a few weeks before coming here, I started feeling pain in my hip. And that was very strange, because I'm actually really healthy and I never had any like major issues with my health. I have this little box of Advil that expired like 2 years ago. I think it can like contain like 10 Advils, and I've maybe used 3 of them in like 5 years. So that's like how healthy I was. But coming here, I had just all kinds of physical ailments throughout the first month of the 40s. And my hip was actually the greatest thing, where I felt during the first week especially, oh, my hip is hurting when I walk, and can I actually continue this trip? I'm carrying this heavy backpack, and I'm not even sure if I can continue on. I'm into this trip 4 days and I already feel it. So I was really doubting my own strength, and that's when my confidence in my own flesh and my own abilities started to crumble. And when I realized, oh, all I can trust right now in is God. And it was like after 1 week, there had been other things, like my ears started like blistering. Even though I really like climbing, I've climbed for many years, I suddenly had the like injury in my wrist, so I couldn't climb anymore. Like many things happening to my body, and I didn't know why, and I was really depressed. And one night I went out, and I was so just preoccupied with my own problems, and God just made me like look up to the sky and see all the stars. And I was like, wow, are the same stars that he has shown Abraham many thousand years ago, and he has promised him offspring, and I'm part of that offspring, and he's sending me to call more of that offspring, and that's why I'm here. And that shifted my focus from my own problems to God's big plan, his salvation history in this world. And after he did that, suddenly my hip was better. So after that, I actually was well. I was able to walk, and I was like really happy. But then I started trusting in my own strength again. So I was like, well, I think it's fine. It's healed, so I'm fine. And just when ration 3 started, the 3rd week, we had heavy backpacks again, I started feeling my hip again. And that was July 3rd. And I think that was the day that was most transforming for me on this trip, or even in recent years, it has really changed my life. It was the day when I woke up and I walked around and I felt like it's back. And I'm not sure if I can continue on. And I don't know, I thought God had healed me, but it's back. And on that day, actually, I really felt how God, as he had, as Jacob was working out of his own strength all his life and came to this river wrestling with God, and God touched his hip, and he came out limping, but it transformed his identity to from the deceiver who holds the heel of his brother to the one who wrestles with God and even comes out victoriously. And I think that's what God did with me on that day. Actually touching my physical hip that I was actually having that pain actually broke my spiritual hip, which was me relying on my own strength all my life long and thinking if I just try hard enough and if I put in enough effort, I can do it myself. But that blocked me from receiving grace and from living by grace and not by my own works. So that day, I saw why God had to actually touch my hip in that way, that it would be broken, that my spiritual self that was holding on to that burden. Actually, I was looking at this backpack. It was too heavy. I knew I couldn't carry it. I was staring at it for, I guess, a couple minutes, and I was just crying because I didn't want to ask anyone to take something out of it. I was just holding on to that burden. And in that moment, God showed me my spiritual self holding on to all these spiritual burdens, my sin, my burdens. I didn't want to let go of it. I didn't want him to carry it because I wanted to do it myself. But I knew I couldn't carry it. And so I told Emily, I can't carry it, and my hip is hurting again today. And people of my team, they took my burden, and that was a deeper experience of grace, seeing my depravity, holding on to my sin and my burden, not willing to let go of it, and that this self that's holding on to that and too proud to have someone else, have Jesus carry my sin, that had to be broken in that way. That's what he did. So I saw my depravity, so that was the lowest point of my course because I just saw the vast greatness of my sinfulness. But then I saw the vast greatness of God's grace. So that grace covered all of that. So the whole day that I was hiking that day, I was just crying. And I was singing that song because Logan was actually singing it behind me. Jesus paid it all to him I owe. Sin had left a crimson stain, but he washed it white as snow. And that's my, I think, most transforming experience on that trip, realizing that I'm really weak, a child of weakness. Watch and pray, find in me thine all in all. That's what he's telling me. And he really taught me to rely on him instead of on myself. And I think that's the greatest gain I have gotten from this 4D course.
Okay. Oh, hi. I'm Leslie, and I came to Strom because I've always loved the outdoors, and I had this idea that maybe I wanted to take women on backpacking trips. So there's a lot of background to that story, but I was Googling and came across SROM, and was really interested in doing like WMPC, and didn't have enough experience, and so I did the 40, just to get a lot of field days and a lot of experience. So yeah, I mean, overall it was an incredible trip. Definitely more physically demanding than I realized, and mentally demanding, which was good. I think some people mentioned this, but yeah, just so much value in being pushed out of your comfort zone, and doing hard things. So, yes, I think it was hard for me to, get space during the trip to reflect on what God was doing as much. I think I'll probably see that in the days to come more. But I think a couple of things was just learning to persevere, and just learning to take one day at a time. Like, I think for a lot of us, we didn't quite know what we signed up for, in terms of mountaineering and what that meant, and snow school and different things. But yeah, just really like released that and submitted to the process, and just took it one day at a time. So I think, that was, definitely something that God was doing in me. I think another theme for me was, just even in the last day or two, I've realized, something really impacting was I think in my childhood, I think I really learned that when things get hard, whether it's like circumstantially or just internally, that my like emotional needs don't get met. And so I think, this is just a really positive experience in terms of SROM culture of like oriented, safe, and valued. And there was a lot of times when things felt really hard. And instructors were just super quick to show up, and to be caring and valuing, as well as like so many teammates so frequently. I think there's just a lot of positive experience for me in doing hard things and feeling cared for and valued. So let's see. So my I am statement is, I used to believe that I was alone, self-protecting, believing that, especially in hard times, my emotional needs wouldn't get met. But now I know that I'm loved by God, protected by Him, pursued by Him, fathered by Him. And God has been rewiring my brain with new experiences, so I trust He will meet my needs, through His presence and through other people. So,
Hello. My name's Tyrell. And my parents are here as well as my sister, which is super awesome. So let's see. So coming into this trip, or let's say before the trip, how I found out about SROM and the courses they offer. Melita is somebody I've known for a long time, and she's good friends with my parents. So I kind of knew about SROM for a while, and then just because I really love the outdoors and the wilderness, as I got older, I was like, now that I have time to take a month off and go into the wilderness for 40 days, I'm like, I'm going to take that opportunity. So I decided, it was like almost a year ago, for the beginning of the course, that I had decided to do the 40. And so then I had a lot of time to prepare, and think about it. But I really didn't know what I was getting in for. It was just, I had no previous experience with such a long period of time in the wilderness, and just kind of yeah, in this atmosphere of community and leadership and following and servant leadership and all these different things. So coming into the trip, I was super excited. I think I was more focused on the physical aspect, like the rock climbing and the mountaineering and the backpacking. I was super excited, and that's awesome. That's what kind of the baseline is for it. But what I didn't anticipate as much is how much we focus on the community and the spiritual growth and honoring God and all these different things that are so much more important than the skills we learn, like rock climbing and mountaineering and backpacking. And so those things that are not physical are, those are the things that I think I grew in the most rather than the skills, the physical skills. So at the beginning of the course, like the first section was rock climbing. I think that was what I was most excited for because I had done a little bit before, a little bit of rock climbing. And I was excited to kind of get into that and just climb some awesome crags and just experience the outdoor aspect of that. So that was super fun. I feel like I really, what's the word? I don't know. But yeah, well, sure. Yeah, that. I really loved it, and I feel like I was able to accomplish much more than I thought. And that was one of my most favorite points in the course was the rock climbing. I just loved it. It was awesome. And then, going into the mountaineering section, which was a little after that, I don't know. I didn't really know what to expect because I'd never really been up so high in the mountains that there's snow. It's just crazy. I didn't know what to expect there either. And we got to, so the main peak we summited was the Twin Peaks. So it's kind of two peaks that are kind of together. They're like only separated by a little bit. So we went up the first one as a team. And then myself and Cody and Emily split off after that and went up the second one. And from there, you could see everything that it had been blocking from the other peak. And we could just see back kind of where we had been in the past, where we came from. And you could also see where we were going. That was just such a cool perspective to have, just kind of process, We started out at the building with no experience, or very little experience, I could say. And now we're on top of this huge mountain, so high up, there's no trees, there's snow. It's just an incredible experience to be up there and just have that perspective. It was one of my highlights. Anyway, and then after that, we did a couple other mountains, smaller ones. And then a little later, we got another opportunity to summit a mountain called Whitecap. And honestly, going into that one, if you know the mountain, it looks really difficult. There's like a couloir, which is just like this thin strip of snow that runs up the side of the mountain. It was me and Cody again with Emily and Jacob. And so they're like, here's the route we're going to take. And I'm just looking at it. I'm like, that looks impossible. It was just from down in the valley where we were camping. It just looks like it's vertical, like straight up. But I was excited, so we did it. We woke up at like 3:30 in the morning, and we got up there and we climbed that snow, and the snow conditions were perfect. We got up there, and it was just mind blowing. Like, so yeah, because of how difficult it is to get up there, and how difficult it is even to get to the base of the mountain. Very few people have climbed it, but so I I feel privileged that I was able to be on the top of that mountain and just be able to see those views, see the mountains, see so far away. We could see the Tetons, and we could see just like, I don't know, it was just incredible. You could see so far, and that was probably honestly, as far as the physical aspect of the course, my high point. I just loved it. It was just incredible being up there with a small group. Yeah, I don't know. I can't explain it. Yeah, but then, let's see. We went, so after that, it was a bit more mountaineering. Then it was into the backpacking and into the student-led section at the end of the course. And that part, let me just, yeah, that part of the course, the student-led section, was probably the part where we had the most time to reflect on what we had learned and what we had been growing in, and just kind of look and say, oh, this is how I'm changing. And this is the things that I've been learning about myself, and about my team. And yeah, it was a really great time to be able to reflect. And during that time, I was reflecting back on my solo, which was 48 hours that we had. We all split up into different campsites on our own for 48 hours, which is like such a rare occasion. It's like, when in the front country are you going to get 2 whole days with literally 0 distractions, where you can just pray and think and process and journal with 0 distractions? It's just such a rare opportunity. Yeah, so during that time, I realized, or I want to say this. Yeah, I realized that as a son of God, previously I had been thinking of myself as a I don't know what word to use, but I've been thinking of God as more of a figure of authority. But through that time, there was a devotion that Logan did actually on sonship. And during my solo, I really came to claim that, I think, as my own. And so, yeah, so I really claimed that sonship. And I began to think of myself as a son of my Father in heaven. Yeah, so that was my spiritual high point in the trip, that I began to, and that's an ongoing thing. Yeah, so I'm beginning to know, beginning to figure out what that means, how to live out life as a son rather than a follower. Yeah, so that's so exciting. Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, so that was pretty awesome. Also, going back to the student-led section, Eric mentioned that he had been baptized. I also was baptized. And, yeah. So the reason behind that was, this trip, I think, signifies new beginnings in my life. Wow. Where I can, oh goodness. Yeah. New beginnings where I can start making the relationship with God more personal, and yeah, just really digging into that, and yeah, living that out. And as my I am statement, I said, I was living under the expectations of others, but with the Lord's help, I will live in obedience to him and according to his word as a son. So.
They need to just draw an X where I need to stand. Be a lot simpler. Yeah. Where to start? I said I didn't want to go first, but I also didn't want to go last. Let's see. I don't know, coming into this, I feel like I had a pretty good idea. I'm actually Wyoming born and raised. I'm going to school here at the university for outdoor recreation tourism management. And I've actually been doing an internship here since January. And this is actually part of it. But yeah, I felt like I got a lot of like inside scoops, like eat this, don't eat that. Like make sure to hydrate this fully. And just different things like that. Yeah, spiritually, I don't know exactly where I was. I was raised in church, but I haven't been a Christian all my life. And this journey that I've been on lately is going into manhood. And I'm 20 years old. I still don't feel like I'm getting there, but definitely society is saying, okay, you're not a teenager anymore. Still kind of feel like it, but yeah, this past year there's been a lot of struggles just not trusting God. I haven't trusted that he's a loving father, that I am good enough to receive his love. It seemed at times that, I'd read a verse like John 3:16, for God so loved the world except for Cody. And I carried that burden. I liked my shame. It was something I could hold on to, I think. It was something that I could say who I was. I've had a lot of perfectionists in my life, just having an artistic family. But one of the things that has been put on my heart, and was my main goal for this course, was to become a man after God's own heart. Yeah, I want to know his heart so deeply sometimes, but it's hard because I haven't trusted him always. But yeah, one particular story I want to share from the 40. It was actually still kind of towards the beginning when we were in the rock climbing section, and we had this Devo called the Burdens Devo. And our instructions before dinner were to find a rock about the size of our palm, and I found a nice rock. Like, it was maybe about that thin, perfectly shaped for my hand, and I was like, all right, cool. But the catch was that you couldn't set it down or drop it. Otherwise, you had to find a new rock that was bigger and carry that around. And our framing question was, what would you do if you had to carry this for the rest of your life? And I was like, all right, I got this. I'd actually done a Bible study this past semester in school where I had to carry a nail around in my pocket the whole semester. Never lost it once. I was like, easy. By the time dinner was over that night, I was on my 5th rock. It was about, I'd say, a little bigger than my notebook here. And they kept on saying to like study your rock and like look at its contours and all this stuff. And I was like on my 5th rock. I'm like, all right, this one's black. It's got shiny stuff on it. All right. I had like so much detail on the first one. And then after dinner, like they said, all right, we're gonna get your packs, have all your climbing gear, and we're gonna go for a walk. Like, all right, cool. And then as I was packing, I was holding this rock in one hand, trying to get climbing gear into the pack without letting it fall down. And then I was holding it, and then I started to feel it shift. I'm like, oh, I gotta fix that. And when I shifted to rebalance it, it came out of my hand, and I did the whole juggle thing and fell out. I was like, dang it. It did. Then I was like, all right, I'll go find a new rock. And walking up this hill, by now I had a rock that was like, I remember it fit in my elbow, and then like my fingers just barely grabbed the edge. And I was like, this is like Moses, but reverse, going up the mountain. Like, is this what it was actually like? But I got up there, and as I was walking, I kind of had an idea what we were going to talk about. Like, just being in a lot of just different ministry things, I've seen a lot of different activities, and it's like, all right, this has to be something with, like, I don't know, some kind of weight that we're carrying or something like that. And I automatically, I knew what it was. Like, God was like, it's your shame. You're not giving me. And I was like, yeah, it might be. This is, I didn't even want to admit that to myself. And yeah, it was funny in the camp, when I had grabbed that next rock, Eric had actually come up to me and he had said, here, we're going to carry this rock together. I'm like, no, man, I got this. I can do this. I was very selfish about this rock. And we get up to the top, and I'm getting out my Bible and journal, and I realize that my rock is sitting on the ground next to me. And I'm like, all right, I don't think anybody saw that. I can just pick it back up. And I look behind me, and there's this other rock. It was literally about the size of my torso. I just felt that little nudge, and it was like, I gotta go pick up that rock, don't I? So I pick it up, and I'm like trying to sit down with this big rock. And I realized that I would have kept on picking up rocks until I found one that I couldn't budge, and I would have stayed there and died with it. Like, I've been that stubborn with God, despite wanting to become this man after his own heart. This verse that comes to mind is Acts 13:22. Says, after removing Saul, he made David their king. He testified concerning him, I have found David, son of Jesse, a man after God's own heart. He will do everything I please. And yeah, I was willing to do everything he pleased except for give him what I was most comfortable with. And that night I'd said, like, hey, I may lay this down, but it's going to be hard for me to actually give this up. And I don't know exactly why. I still don't know exactly why. But yeah, I talk about that because this trip was literally a once-in-a-lifetime adventure. It was even more than I think the word adventure was. I saw landscapes that were dramatic in every, like, all the best sense of the word. Like, I walked through fields of wildflowers that you could literally just smell as you're walking through. I've lived in Wyoming my whole life. I've never seen anything like that. But that's not why God calls us there. We may be amazed by it, and he's all in it. I saw him in the tiniest little section of grass with just life in it, and just these giant mountains that you have to climb with an ice axe and spiky shoes, crampons, and a rope that's attached to somebody else that you really hope catches you if you mess up. But this process of becoming a man after God's own heart, it's a process I'm learning. I kind of figured this, and I'm continuing on to the WMPC after this, but I kind of figured that this would get me ready to go. It'd be just the cure. I'd get fixed. This course has been probably one of, if not the most physically, emotionally, spiritually draining things I have ever done in my life. I've been around the outdoors my whole life. I thought I knew the outdoors. But, yeah, and I wasn't here for these guys. I was here for myself. It's like, I'm going to become a man after God's own heart. And I don't care what anybody else does. But honestly, he showed me so much through these people and their testimonies. You talk to these people about where they've come from, it'll make you cry. And I'm realizing that servitude is that path toward becoming a man after God's own heart. Because I've seen these people, they're all after God's own heart. And how they served me and met me in my weakest moments when I didn't want to talk to anybody. I'd be on the trail and one of them go, "Hey, Cody, how you doing?" I'm like, "Really, man? I was having a good time being in my bubble." But anyway, I am a verbal processor, and I could keep rambling all night. Yeah, I'm still in that process. I don't know where God has me. I feel like he's been silent, but he's silent for a reason. That's hard at times, but yeah, I am confident that he's given me the right path. And yeah, just one step at a time. Yeah, and like I learned on course, you can climb up as many mountains and stay up in those places all you want to, but you have to come down to the valley at some point. Yeah, that's where God's going to grow you. That's where, yeah. So I'll just share my I am statement and then, yeah. Wow. I was once a slave who chained myself to my idols willingly. But because of the work of Jesus Christ in my heart, I am a man who finds joy in being his servant. That's something I'm still working on. So, yeah. Thank you for your time.
Hi, everyone. I'm Logan again. Good to see you. Been a while. Again, had the honor and privilege of leading your sons, daughters, friends, however you were connected to this bunch on this 40-day journey, really. And it was a joy. It really was. It's really hard to even start and begin with how do you talk about what just happened in the lives of this many people in a time span of 40 days in the wilderness where God really just shakes people down. I've said something similar to this idea that the wilderness strips from us all the nonsense, the fronts, the false identities, and those coping mechanisms that we hold to so tightly, like Cody mentioned with that rock, white-knuckled holding on to it. In the wilderness, just like God just through that will strip that away, sometimes quickly and sometimes with a little chisel, and knock away at it. And certainly it's no different for Emily and myself or the other instructors that we had, Jacob and Melita, who were with us, the longer stretches of climbing and mountaineering, and even our multi-pitch instructors who came in for a couple of days. Man, I come into this just with gratitude. Really, at SROM, you go through your WMPC. You've heard the term Wilderness Ministry Professional course, and you're trained as an instructor here at SROM. And my bride and I had the pleasure of doing that together last spring. Rachel up here, which was a beautiful thing. I still just like weep when I think about how beautiful that experience was, but even that doesn't prepare you. When you get that phone call that says, "Hey bro, have you thought about this 40-day course and leading this?" Immediately the first thoughts in my mind are every area of my weaknesses, everything that I've failed in the past, in other career, in life in general, weaknesses, uncertainties, all those unknowns just really rattled me to my core. But I really do stand here just incredibly grateful that the Lord called these people that you just got to hear from into the wilderness at the same time. I'm kind of a softie, so I'll try and hold it together. But truly, when you're out there, it really is this roller coaster of some people are having great days and some people are in the worst day of their life, including yourself. And I am incredibly grateful for my co-instructor, Emily, who, it's designed that we lean on each other. And I cannot name another leader who I would rather have done this course with. Just an incredible woman after God's heart, very skilled, professional, and pretty much carried me on some days up mountains because she's just strong. She's just strong. And again, I'm reminded of my weaknesses. It's crazy, and I really do. I hope it glorifies God when I say I'm reminded of my weaknesses because He's strong in that.
Amen. That's right.
His strength is revealed in our weaknesses. And I have seen that in each of these people and really felt that in my body, in my soul. There were days where I just look at Emily and just shake my head like, I'm here. That's about it. I'm going to sweep. I'm going to stay in the back. I'm going to try and catch my breath. Me and Andy, the old guys, just kind of, we'll get there in a little bit. Everybody's already eating lunch, like packing back up. We're like, oh, we're not stopping. Okay, cool. We'll just keep going. Yeah, so I just praise God, and I am very grateful that He called these people. And it's funny from an instructor's perspective to help guide and lead well a team, and you try and prompt and really like something Emily and I had talked about since January when we first realized we were going to be leading this course together, is that we really wanted to cover this team in Scripture and really seek the Jesus in each of them and call that out. And it's a beautiful thing when you see people start to realize what that means and what the Jesus is in them. And they start to put it together in this little thing we call community. And sometimes it's ugly. And we cried together and we laughed together. We swatted a lot of mosquitoes together. We sure sweated together. Yeah, but it's a beautiful thing how God uses community to really grow us and shape us. And something that I wrote about community that I learned on this trip is that it's hard. But when you seek and you focus on the Jesus in each other, we not only grow and mature, but we get what we didn't even know we needed. And so as I still try and put words to it, this team has helped me grow, and I've seen them lift each other up on some pretty dang hard days. And it's a beautiful thing. And I'm incredibly proud of each of them for pressing in and pressing through. Community for me, coming in as an instructor, even last summer, I think back to courses that I led and were a part of. And you're in this intense setting for really growing in love and reliance and dependence on each other. And you really get that glimpse of what God said when he calls us like the body of Christ, and the view of the community within that and how we help each other in those ways. But then in this setting, you have to walk away from that. And that's hard. That's the hard part. And a question I even asked myself before I accepted this course, and then even right before we started, was, is it worth it? Is it worth the pain, the process, to press into that and give of myself and put myself out there? Not only will it be received well, but like it's been mentioned, will my needs be met? What will I get? But also, am what I'm giving enough? Is it enough? I say it's worth it. It's interesting. The scripture in my mind that had come up a lot throughout courses about Jesus when he's with disciples and he's preaching, he's teaching, and his mother and his brother show up and they knock on the door. And the disciples come, I guess near the door, they come up and say, "Hey, your mom's here, your brother's here." And Jesus stopped and looked and said, "Who's my mother? Who's my brothers? These are my mother, my brothers, my sisters." Right before this course, my uncle passed away. And I had about 24 hours before this team showed up. And his funeral was that day, my only day off. I couldn't go. It's in Tennessee. And that question keeps coming up. Is it worth it? Because there's consequences. You say yes to something, you got to say no to something else. And I've seen this group sacrifice for each other on a level where you see this, I don't care if you meet my needs, but here I am. And they press into that. My back hurts too, but yes, I'll carry that for you. Emotionally, I'm drained, but yes, tell me your story. Who are you and what do you need? So I say it's worth it. It's funny that Hannah mentioned me singing this song that Jesus paid it all. I was singing that because I was in a pretty low spot. I'm supposed to be the instructor, the leader, who's leading through example, and I have a hard time holding it together. And I had printed some songs off hymns just because I love to read the lyrics a lot of times because I'm awful at singing. They can attest to that. And I'm literally holding the lyrics in my hand and walking with my sticks and just kind of singing this song under my breath, really. And Hannah says, "What is that?" And I show it to her, and I didn't realize that in that moment, God was powerfully meeting her. In my weakness, yet again. There he was, strong. It's a beautiful thing when you trust him, when you step in and you press into that, into the unknowns like Ben mentioned. When you don't know the plan and when you don't know what's next and it scares the heck out of you, but you press in anyways. And he uses other people a lot of times to help us. It's a beautiful thing. Some things I won't ever forget. The night, I can picture the place, but Kareth and I had a conversation that I think was pretty hard for both of us, really. Asking those hard questions that we ask a lot when we're uncertain, unsteady. And we get back together at night, we're checking in as a group, our family time as we called it. And he says, "Yeah, that Logan is a wise old sage." And I had to pause for a minute because I also thought that was just a jab at me being older. And then I think, I'm only 34. It must be the gray. But we pressed into a hard thing and we connected through that. And again, in weakness, when I didn't have the answers as an instructor to give him, to help him in his uncertainty, God still spoke to him, he still spoke to me. Because he's strong when we're not. Yet again. And also, we're hiking one day, and it's just one of those days where, like, everybody's head is looking at the trail, and you're really just, like, following, like, the person in front of you's boot goes right, so yours goes, and you're just, like, really going. And then every now and then someone pauses, and everyone hits each other's backs, and we kind of like, oh, yeah, we're just kind of getting through it. And I look over, and I see Hannah again, and she's mumbling. What's she mumbling about? What is she talking about? And I see she's got paper in her hand with her trekking pole. And I'm thinking, I said, "What are you doing there?" "Oh, I'm just memorizing Ephesians." I said, "Oh, here I am. I can barely walk and breathe." She's quoting Ephesians from memory as she's hiking with a pack that's bigger than she is. And I'm in my mind thinking and complaining about whatever. And yet again, I'm reminded, man, he's a lot stronger than I am. And there's a lot of other people who are stronger than I am too, that I can lean on when I need help. Funny, the next day, she's doing the same thing. I said, "How's Ephesians coming?" She said, "I don't know, this is Philippians." Okay. No big deal. It's just memorizing whole books of scripture when I can't breathe and, whatever. Yeah, so there's a lot of memories, honestly. And we can stand up here for days and share them all. And our rear ends are probably sore in chairs and we're tired of standing. But ultimately, I'm just, again, very grateful. And for this team, for each of you. And I've talked to each of you in different levels, but I'm glad no matter how you were brought here and why, it's a heck of a team. And God showed off a lot. And we got to see it. Baptizing two of my brothers in an alpine lake with snow still in it. It was a lot of fun. And really, really cold. There's some funny video there. The funny story. We'll talk about later. But something we talk about a lot on course, and I'll wrap up. But the God of the mountains, who calls us to the mountains, who created the mountains, those wildflowers that no one else sees, that still praise him and celebrate him and his creativity, whether anybody's there or not. The same God who builds up the mountains and makes them fall down. We saw a lot of rock fall. There's a lot of stories there. He's the same God of the valley. And there's a Devo, a night we talked about that my brother Jacob shared. It was beautifully done. As we're camped on Mammoth Glacier, we literally have our tents set up on a glacier that's moving and shifting and cold because it's ice. And we're on this talus field that's floating on it. That's where we were kind of doing our kitchen and things like that. And we talk about the high places and why do we go there? What's the importance? What's the value of skipping work, school, leaving our loved ones, and walking through that? Why? And then we get up there and we experience these things and this freedom and the beauty, and we don't want to leave. Some of us want to leave more than others. Toilets and such. Yeah, we miss those. But the whole devotional focuses on the idea that when we go to the mountains, God gives us new perspective. And he shows us those strengths, those weaknesses, that community, the love, all the things, parts of his identity, who he is, shows us who we are. And when you look at Scripture, you see all these people who God has called in the wilderness, and he's just done huge things through them afterwards. It's this time of transition. And so as family and loved ones, as you hear what they're sharing, remember that usually when God calls people to the wilderness, it's for transition, space, training, for something bigger that glorifies him. And so as you receive these loved ones back, pour into them, love them, ask them the questions. Because it's easy to get wrapped up in the beauty, the climbing, the stuff. We're very busy. There's a lot of days where we got up really early and we didn't go to bed till really, really late. And you kind of think, I didn't even talk to God today. What's the deal? But he did something because he's good at that. And so I'm going to read a quote that we share in that devotional. I'm going to butcher this name. His name is Rene Demal. Don't quote me on that as I read the quote. You cannot stay on the summit forever. You have to come down again. So why bother in the first place? Just this. What is above knows what is below, and what is below does not know what is above. One climbs, one sees. One descends, one sees no longer, but one has seen. There's an art of conducting oneself in the lower regions by the memory of what one saw higher up. When one can no longer see, one can at least still know. Something we know because we were there is that God is good. Amen. And he's strong. Even when we're not. And he'll meet you there. And it's a beautiful thing. So I say again, it's worth it. And as we return to the Valley team, remember that that's what we talked about. He took us up there for that reason, so we can bring it back. We can love others well, and we can share that perspective and that new growth. Yeah, so my I am statement, since we're sharing those. I was living in fear of my weaknesses, but I'm now walking in trust and dependence of God's strengths.
Hello. So good. Oh man. I'm Emily Cable. Howdy. I was the lead instructor on this course, and it was awesome. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was very restful.
Said no one.
Said no one ever, except for it actually was, and I'm not joking. It was absolutely blessed, restful time. God has been working. Yeah, so good. God's been working my heart in really big ways in last year, especially, and just growing me in love and reminding me what rest is, and so just like getting to do something really physically challenging with really beautiful people was really restful. And getting to seek his heart and to see different characteristics of him through these folks. It's quite beautiful. I'm very grateful. Yeah. Yeah, I think a lot of times my prayer was, Lord, how may I rest in you today? And it's just like the joy of delighting in him and resting in him. It was really awesome. So, yeah, I'm just grateful for the journey I got to be on. So, to start off, I'd like to have a list of thank yous. So, first, my mommy and my daddy, they're here. Yeah. Thank you very much. Support staff. Yeah. For real, they actually made it all work.
Amen.
We couldn't have done it without them at all. So, Rachel, Jesse, Callie, Lydia, and who else? Miles, who's been helping out. Kevin. Yeah, thank you guys. Full-time staff for sure, working throughout the year behind the scenes. So good. Yes, thank you. Thank you to the families and the friends that prayed for us. For real, we had a lot of scary moments, and the Lord protected us hugely. One of them was there's a big rock fall. We were rock climbing, and 3 massive boulders fell off the climb while someone was on the climb, and there were people underneath it, and no one was injured, no ropes were severed in crucial places. It was severed just at the very bottom of the climb. So the Lord was very faithful in protecting us. So thank you for praying. And want to thank my dear friend Rachel. She let her husband come on this 40-day trip. Let him allowed. Yes. Yeah. So grateful that you shared. And my co-instructor Logan. My brother. So good. Yeah. Truly, having such a great co-instructor made it a lot more restful. Yeah. And just a man of maturity and seeking the Lord's heart and desiring that for other people. Really a blessing. Yeah, thanks, Logan. So, yeah, super good. And I could go on, but I shan't. All right, so on to funner things. There was the worst moment, of course. It had to do with a country in Africa. Ethiopia. So, Logan and I both really like coffee. Yeah. Ethiopia is so good. Okay, so ration 5 rolls around. We'd been like holding out. Our coffee, our glorious beans, our whole beans comes in with the grinder. We're like, oh yeah. So we like brew up the first morning, sipping away like this tastes weird. Like not good. And then we're like smelling the bag. Normally you have this glorious aroma greeting your nose. It's like spicy. Like, what is going on? So then we're like, okay, whatever, that's weird. Like, lunchtime, pretzels, spicy. Like, what in the world? Grits, spicy. Beans, spicy? And so basically, like, our spice kit had been simmering, like, marinating with everything else in our bin for, like, a month and a half at that point-ish. Ration 5. The spice kit refills, and so, like, our Ethiopia Glory tasted like spice kit. And we're like, so it was super sad. So it's like student led, so all the students are off on their own. We passed them by one day, and we're just like venting about Ethiopia, freaking Ethiopia. And then William's like, I'll take that off your hands. I'm like, great, a pound and a half lighter. Thank you, William. And then he's like, you're right, that did taste weird. But thanks for carrying that, William. Yeah. You're good. Also, this group was among the few that did Buddy Stanleys. Wow. Yeah. So they like take Stanley shovel, go long, and then like one would dig a hole, and they're like, okay, here, your turn, and then they'd carry along. But they did great. Efficiency. It's good.
Really did focus on community.
You're not wrong.
Yeah, bro.
One morning we're all cooking breakfast, and there's some banter going along per usual. Something about one of our team members claiming to be the youngest. Another pipes up and says, Mr. Williams says, I'm 17. And just like, everyone erupts in laughter, like, got him. That was so good. So good. Oh, man. Another quote from Dear William. It pooped in my backpack. I learned that I don't trust myself to clean poop out of my backpack because I kept finding more. It was a little squamster at the climbing site. So Cody one day says in a debrief near the beginning of the course, I had a brain fart, and Hannah's just like, dead serious. What is that? And so then after the explanation, she, oh, that is a beautiful metaphor. You're not wrong. Oh, so good, so good. Yeah. Oh man, so many. Beautiful. One that was really awesome. So Jack one day was just having a rough go of life. Like his backpack was very heavy because he was carrying a backpacker's guitar that weighed like 10 pounds on the very back of his already enormous backpack. He had like party lights. You were like, what are you doing? He's like in a hammock on the glacier or something. So anyway, Jack had this enormously heavy backpack, and then it was just so cool. He shared some really amazing stuff with us one evening, and the next day his pack weighed the same, but he's just like joyfully walking down the trail, and like my pack feels 30 pounds lighter. I'm just like, yeah, seeing the Lord lift burdens. Which reminds me of the theme of our course, which our students didn't know until the very end. We're like, about that. By the way, the theme of your course is victory. And so victory was the theme, and getting to see God do victory after victory in each of their lives. Logan and I would just like look at each other, fist bump, be like, victory. Yeah, so good. And one thing that was really awesome that I'd never done before on a course was our very last night, we had communion together. And I actually didn't think of it until just now, but like, that is victory. Like, the blood of Jesus, body of Christ, broken for us. We get to walk in victory, fullness of life, freedom from sin. And so just like the joy that having to have communion, getting to have communion together in the wilderness was awesome, and just like a reminder, display of victory in our lives. So good. Yeah, I, coming to this course, have done a lot of field days and a few courses, and it kind of felt routine to me. And so the struggle wasn't necessarily like new things to overcome necessarily, but more so, how do I engage in this moment and stay present? And even as roles changed from going from student-led to back to instructor mode, from different co-instructors coming in and out, just like how to engage and recognize role changes, and even like the giving over of responsibility to our students. And so it was really cool to see God work faithfully in reminding me that there is great delight and joy to be had in mundane things. Wow. That a lot of life is very mundane. And even in something that I absolutely love, like Straw doing courses, can become routine. And that's okay, because that doesn't mean that it's less. But one of the questions that we have in our transference that you've heard us reference a few times, God, what is it that you have resurrected or found on this course for me? And I wrote, freedom to engage with delight what I had deemed mundane. And so, yeah, seeing God's faithfulness in that, and even the transformation from last summer, and just growing my love, and yeah, it just has been glorious. So something I want to read for you. Feet aching, hips bruised and rubbed raw, knees in pain with every downward step. My pack seems to increase in weight with each hill. I'm hobbling along now. Been at it for 37 days, with more to come. I chose this. I collapse into a weary heap, withering under the heat of the sun, futilely swatting the swarming insects, seeking my very blood. I chose this. Why? Sip water, place the head note over my cap, be sure to tuck it in around my collar. Munch a handful of gorp. I rise again to take on the trail. Burnt face, cracked lips, spattered with my own blood. I rise again because I chose this chance to conquer oneself. To see what I'm made of, to smell the rain, watch the day turn to night in glorious color, observe a comet, which was super cool to see, feel small under the vast expanse of the Milky Way, to be awed by my Creator. I chose this, to engage with pain, to know a deeper joy, to endure to learn what satisfies. I've been shown a faithfulness unlike any other, an unbelievable freedom to delight in simple things. I chose this to bring others along on the journey, that they too may taste and see the goodness of God and know he is the same here as he is there, the same faithful one in our pain as he is in our joy, delighting to connect us and commune with us. Though there is much pain and doubt and questions, I still choose this because I know it is worth it. So, yeah, it's just a course really marked by the faithfulness of God, his goodness. Obviously, you've heard the amazing work he's done in our team. And, yeah, I just want to bring him honor and glory because he has done great things and will continue to do them. My I am statement was, I was clinging to my identity, based in my strength, skills, and talents, craving recognition. But now, because of Jesus, I am secure in my identity as a beloved daughter of God, delighting in my Father.
Wow. Beautiful.
So, thank you all very much for coming and sitting for a very long time and rejoicing with us and praising the Lord with us. And I just want to say to my team, I'm very proud of you. You guys have done a really hard thing and engaged and persevered and endured well. And so, as Logan mentioned, with all of you that know some of these folks, if you would please engage and seek them out and continue to help them go deeper, remembering what God has done in those high places. So, yeah, thanks.
Awesome. Emily, Logan, thank you. Also, Melita and Jacob, they're adjuncts. There were others, but thank you. And team, thank you. I mean, I really, just for being brave tonight and leaning into that space. You've been brave for the last 40 days and courageous, and you really did transfer that same heart to lean into this space with bravery, honesty, authenticity, courage. And that's a gift that you gave me. I don't want to speak for everybody else here, but you certainly gave it to me, and I'm very thankful. My heart is very full, and I just want to honor you two, Christ in you, just to shepherd and lead and serve, honor Christ in you all, and I'm excited for the journey that you are in the middle of. That is an important metaphor, and just want to thank you for that. I'll just close because it is getting late by saying that Scripture is very clear that one person sows, one person waters, but God causes the plants, the life to grow. And so there's been a lot of sowing and there's been a lot of watering, not just from the leadership, but among the team, Christ and one another. Our hope of glory has ministered to each other. And this is the beginning. I mean, in some sense, it's the end, but it's really just the beginning. And so there's going to be an opportunity for you to spend tons of time talking with your loved ones. And it's going to be tempting at first when they say, how was the trip? And they say, it was good. And you're like, okay, but tell me more. And they're like, oh my gosh, I don't even know where to start. So you're like, so a week later, so was the trip good? Yeah, it was good. But what does that mean? So there's so much you want to know as a loved one. Trust me, my daughter's done a 20-day course. I know this feeling. And I also know that seeds take time to grow, and plants' life takes time to grow. And not to put alumni on the spot, but I'm looking at some alumni that have been on previous trips. And sometimes the learning and the wisdom and the revelation comes months and years, and sometimes even longer than that to actually begin to flourish and take root in ways that are substantial. And so this is the beginning of the sharing, and really you all, it's the beginning of a lifetime. But I will say this, just like Jacob had a stone that he slept on when he first left his family, and a memorial that he set up after he wrestled with God, those are places of remembrance where he said, I know that God has met me in this place. You have those. You have those physically, metaphorically, emotionally. And those are going to be places you'll go back to in the years to come. So this is just the beginning. And I just want to say thank you for being here. And loved ones, thank you for spending your time, energy, finances to be here to support them. That's a gift. So we want to honor you as well. We're going to close in prayer. And at SROM, that's pretty informal, fairly